Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Today, we're going to take a deep dive, a closer look, an overview into the new redesigned fighter for Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, the new Kickstarter from N World. All right. Now, here you can see an infographic, but before we get into the infographic, I do have to give you a bit of a preamble to give you the context to looking at this new class for Advanced 5th Edition. So, here, a quick note on terminology. In the context of this article and ones like it, O5E means original 5E, the version of 5E that you'll find in the 5th edition rules. A5E is a shorthand for Advanced 5E, which refers to level up. We've previously emphasized how the classes in Level Up now give a lot more love to the social and to the social and exploration pillars of the game, and while they certainly do, we haven't neglected the combat pillar either. Several of the classes got a more extensive combat pillar overhaul than the others, though, and below we'll be discussing both the changes and what the benefits from those changes will be for your games. Much of this information hasn't gotten a lot of proverbial airtime because it's more in depth than what can be squeezed into an infographic, such as the one you're seeing. But this is also some of the most impressive design work that the team has produced. So get ready for some exciting reveals. It's notable that even this is more of a highlight reel than an exhaustive breakdown, with a dozen updated classes and the new martial class, to say nothing of rebalanced spells, feats, and magic items. There's much more that's been rebalanced than just what's in the article. So let's get into the fighter. With this infographic, you will notice there are some things that might not be very familiar to you, such as if we go across the top, we know what level and proficiency bonuses. You're familiar with that. Some of the class features, and then we have something here known as Knacks Known. Knacks Known. There's also maneuvers known and maneuver degree, something brand new for the fighter, and of course I apologize for that, and something new for Advanced 5th Edition. We also have things such as soldiering knacks. If we look under features, we have combat maneuvers, soldiering knacks that are brand new. We even have maneuver specialization, reserves, etc. So let's get into the article. Quote, for Fighter, it was killing the sacred cow of action surges. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I know some people, the minute they heard that the fighter no longer has an action surge, just clicked the video and left. So the rest of us that are still here, if you're still here, please let me go into further detail. Action surges were one of the biggest sources of cheese with fighters, especially for multiclassing, as it's a direct break on the action economy. I've given fighters a lot of hopefully more interesting features as a balance to their removal, but when I took the fighter project, removing them was one of my main goals. From Andrew Engelbright, lead designer of the fighter class. All right. The fighter class is much loved in O5E, and as much as this may be starting to sound like a broken record, for good reason. It's much more useful over the long term than its incarnations in previous editions, and yet it's still a comfortable introduction to those unfamiliar with tabletop RPGs in general, or D20 based fantasy games in particular. Yet it also receives significant changes. Why? The first reason is that once you're familiar with O5E, it gets a little bit bland. Fighters are really good at basic attacks, and they get a lot of them, but unless you take certain specific subclasses, that's almost all a fighter does, basic attacks. This has helped enormously in A5E by combat maneuvers, and the fighter is the clear choice to showcase that new system to its fullest potential. Fighters are able to choose any of the combat schools in the game rather than from a limited set, and they also have some additional exertion points so they can use those maneuvers more frequently. They also acquire new maneuvers faster than other classes, as you can see above. Astute readers will probably notice by now that Action Surge ability is nowhere to be seen in the Level Up Fighter class. Whew. This was another major reason for the heavy revisions to the fighter. While not terribly problematic on a single-classed fighter, Action Surge is a nightmare for the action economy in a lot of multi-class builds. When taken outside the context of a single class fighter, the additional action from Action Surge can be used to lob an extra spell in a multi class spellcaster build, get a second batch of Divine Smites when mixed with a Paladin, and so on. It's worth noting that while Second Wind appears to be gone, it's not really. There's an adamant mountain maneuver called Catch Your Breath that fills the same mechanical function, making it optional and rebalanced rather than absent entirely. So, like the Warlock and Herald, there's now more of an incentive to play a fighter in order to experience the class itself rather than cherry picking a couple of powerful front loaded abilities. Now, I'm going to go back to the infographic, and this is just a tiny portion. And for those who are like panicked right now, like, wow, you got rid of Action Surge, it doesn't exist. That's not the case. So, if I can give you my editorial, the Action Surge itself has been broken apart and placed within the martial maneuvers. And if you are not familiar with it, if you take a look and do some more study, and I also have another video about the combat maneuvers that have been included in Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. The combat maneuvers, I believe there's over 165 of them, are in parity to spell casting. So much like there's spells that go from level 1 through 9, and the spell casting classes can pick them, martial characters are able to pick combat maneuvers, and they go from degrees. So they go from first degree up to fifth degree, and there are 11 schools. And within them, there are abilities to acquire more actions and have more actions with martial abilities, making the fighter more dynamic and allowing them to do more than just I hit it with my sword. Also, for other classes, Level Up was trying to redefine and rebalance the the character classes so that there's more incentive to stay within your own character class. So the ability for other spellcasters to use Action Surge in O5E has been changed in A5E in Advanced 5th Edition, where you can find the ability to cast other spells through, for example, rare spell effects, through and also through class features in the other spell casting classes in the game. And I know I'm being rather vague about it because what happened was the desire to remove Action Surge wasn't just to nerf. I know you're going to hear that a lot. Oh, you guys nerfed everything. No, it wasn't nerfing it. It was the ability to remove Action Surge as it exists and break it apart into its component features. So, for example, in some of the maneuvers, you may be able to take an extra action doing a specific thing, such as taking a movement or operating an object or what have you, or maybe a specific combat maneuver, such as knocking someone down or restraining them or grappling or something of that nature, disarming and whatnot, sundering weapons. When it comes to spell casting and the ability to basically launch extra spells, what happens now is instead of just getting level dips in fighter and picking Action Surge, what now has to happen is you can pick fighter and then you start picking martial abilities that give you those extra actions, and then you would maneuver your character that way. It becomes more of a story element. It means that there is more of a purposeful nature in terms of multi-classing, and it does give a greater incentive where the fighter begins to as a single class begins to dominate in its own niche, and does not have its niche eliminated by having other spellcasting classes basically say, hey, if I just level dip in a fighter, I now have extra actions just like you do, but I do it better with magic. Maybe that's a little bit of a strange editorial, and it does seem to come off a little bit negative, and I know it can be scary, but if you take a look at the rest of these videos, as we do a little bit of a highlight reel into the other character classes, you'll see the design philosophy behind it. And remember, this wasn't just done by one individual. This was done by playtesting and surveys and playtesting again and modifying. And lots of people, although there are many individuals that would prefer to have this as a character, in the whole scope of the game, there are many people who want to play their game, and they felt that some of these things are what we like to call spammed and dipped, and we wanted to remove that and make it more of a dynamic choice and make it more story focused. And also, we have things like exploration and a social pillar where focusing on one specific part of a character class may now deprive you of being able to navigate and even survive in these other pillars of the game. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for just being part of the show. Um, as always, a call to action. If you like this kind of content and want to see more of it, please like, share, subscribe. I would really appreciate it if you do so. Spread the word, and of course, there's a huge archive of great, brilliant individuals who are part of the show who are my co-hosts. Where we do live streams, so please take a look at that. Anyway, guys, have a great day. As always.